select all of the bones. And the IK handles here, you can see, are going to be selected as well. So let's go ahead and do the bones first. We're going to select on set preferred angle. Simply what that does is basically set the angle of your bones so that if you need to go back to the original pose, you can easily do that. Right down here in the time slider, you can see that we have time set from 0 to 30. Now you can access these animation preferences with this icon right here, and you can set your first frame and last frame animation right here to get the number of keyframes or the frames of animation in there. There are additional playback options as well here. Now, for the keyframing option, we want to make sure that we are first on keyframe 0. What I'm going to do is come right down here on a keyboard and click S. And what that does is, you can see the little red line, it sets a keyframe for me. So if I come here now to frame, scrub over the timeline to frame 5, now I can rotate those bones, and you can see that by scrubbing back and forth now that it has set another keyframe for me, because this icon right here called auto keyframe toggle was on. Now this is very important when you're doing animation, because if you're doing forward animation you may not want this on, but it's fairly automated. It was on before I actually toggled it on, so it's on by default normally. If you don't want that on, you can simply deselect that so that you can animate without setting keyframes. You can see I moved this set of bones again, and it has no keyframe placed on the time slider frame 10. However, now if I come over here, you can see that if I did not set a keyframe, it will not key my pose. So that in turn you need to be careful of. Alright, so I'm going to undo these. So I do not want those keyframes. Alright. So when I'm setting keyframes, I need to first set the pose that I want before or the pose that is currently there, if it's not already keyed, before I reposition that particular leg. And here's why. If I don't have a keyframe, say select on that IK handle, you can see there are no keyframes here. And if I go ahead to frame 5 and the move tool and set a keyframe there, and this auto key is on, you can see that it changes it for the entire time slider. And since I don't have a previous keyframe set, I can't really go back to that pose very easily and put it back exactly where it was without it. So, caution, you want to make sure that you are setting keyframes in the pose that it currently is in before you set your new keyframes. Now typically what I do when I'm doing looping animations is I set keyframes for all of my bones or handles that I'll be setting keyframes on frame 0. Now you can see if I go to each one of these, there is a keyframe on frame 0. Here and here. Now if I come to frame 5 and lift that leg and auto key is on, it'll set another keyframe, and it has my other pose as well. I may not end up using this bind pose keyframe in my animation, but I know that it's there to reference if I need it. Alright, so moving on, I'm going to work in orthographic view as much as possible, and I'm going to go ahead and position that leg, my very first key pose, on my character at frame 5. So you can see I'm at frame 5, set my bind pose keyframe on frame 0, but I'm at frame 5 to start my animation. So I'm going to set that, and I'm going to check that pose in my other orthographic views to make sure that it's the way that I want it. And then I'm going to call that one good for now. Now also, in this particular pose, you can see the arms are down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. Go ahead and set my keys down. Alright, it's going to be a little rough since the rig on this is very light. It doesn't have nearly enough control on it really to be using the IK. But we're going to go ahead and use that so you can see how generally it works. Anyway, alright, so you can see now that my pose is fairly there for my first keyframe pose. Alright, now that we have our first key pose in place, we're going to go ahead and reveal our second key pose. Go ahead and hide that one. And the next one we're looking for is the fully extended leg on the side nearest to us. So that is in Anim reference 4, and we'll go to our side view, and the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and grab our root node here, the one that has everything attached to it, and we're going to the side view, and I'm looking at the bottom of the chin. The first thing I want to do is go ahead and set a key pose of the bob up and down from the torso all the way down. And you can see when I move that, my IK handles maintain the location that they were previously in. And this is one of the advantages to working with the IK. Alright, so for the leg facing closest to us, that's going to be extended out fully in front of us. And want to make sure that we are not overextending our IK handle so that our joint does that. I want to make sure that it's solving like a joint, not one that's been broken. Alright, so the additional handle coming right out here, and I'm going to lift that up so that again it doesn't look like it's breaking the IK handle. Fully extended and back. Go ahead and see where my arm is. This particular arm is fully extended out front. Going back to my orthographic view, go ahead and match that up best that I can without breaking my IK. Oops. Go back to where I can actually get hold of that handle, and I'm going to go ahead and actually reference my skin again so I don't have to worry about clicking on that. Alright, so back here, go ahead and extend my arm in the back there. Alright, now when I scrub, I can see that my person is beginning his walk cycle. Alright, the next one that I need is the opposite of this one. So let's go ahead and find that reference pose. There it is, where the leg furthest from us is now up. So we'll go back to the side view and scrub over to frame 15. We have 5 frames in between each one of our keyframes, and we're going to go ahead and position those. Now this leg is the one that is out front and it's closest to us, so that is the one that is going to be down. Oops, but here I can see that I need to move my my root node first. My head is not aligned. So the way that I can do that, since I know that it's up in the position that I want it here on frame 5 is to come back here, and I have with my root node selected, I'm going to right click, copy, go back over to my new keyframe pose, and paste, and that way it puts it right back up there where it used to be. Alright, and now I can position my legs accordingly. Okay. And this one is down. Alright, go to my perspective view so I can get a closer look at these. Now my arms also were in the down pose before, so I know that those exist. I'm going to come back over here and get those. Alright, so select on one of those, copy, back over to keyframe 15, paste those in. Alright, copy, paste those in. Alright. Now sometimes the handle snaps into position, but the limb doesn't, so you can just scrub on the time slider to get that to cooperate. Now, just to make sure I get the legs in the right place. Oops, yeah, I do not. So you can see that it looks a little wonky, and that's why, because I have my legs in the opposite direction that they need to be. So I'm going to go back, correct that by grabbing that one and putting it down. And putting this one up. Alright, now that should read better. This might be beginning. It's fully extended. Back up. Good. Now that's reading a lot better. Now I have my high pose and my fully extended low pose. Now I'm going to need to do this in the opposite direction as well. So again, I'm going to grab the root node and I'm going to copy that position from frame 10, go another 5 frames past my last keyframe, paste that into position. Now I know that he's in exactly the same down pose. Now I'm going to go ahead and look for the key pose that I need, which is the fully extended in the opposite leg. So I believe that's probably keyframe 2. What I need. Yes. Alright, so on frame 20, we're referencing animation reference pose 2, and the front leg is fully extended behind. So that's the first one I'm going to grab now before I go back to my side view, so that I can know I've got the right leg back here. Okay. And the right leg, the other leg forward. I'm going to position that so it's well extended but not breaking my IK. Alright, now the arms go in the opposite direction of the legs, so this one, which is furthest toward us, is fully extended behind. Alright, grab that handle, extend forward. Alright, now back to my perspective view and just scrub through this. He's walking. Alright, it's very choppy and raw because of the IK. It's not fully controlled, but alright, we're on the right path. Okay, so now that we have that piece done, the way that we're going to create a looping animation is to make sure that the animation ends up on the same frame that it started as. Frame 5 is our animation first key pose. We're going to now go ahead and copy these particular bone positions to frame 25. So as my person walks, fully extended, back up, fully extended, we need that last one to loop around to the very beginning. Alright, so I'm going to go back to frame 5, grab my root node, copy and paste that position on frame 25. There we go. And I can also do the same with the other nodes. Can I just do them individually? Alright. So I know exactly where they are. Should be in exactly the same pose. These arms need help, don't they? Copy. Paste. From frame 5, copy. Paste. Alright, scrub it so it catches up with it. Alright, so we should have a complete cycle now. From 5 and 25 are exactly the same frame. Alright, we'll go ahead and save our file at this point.